You can also like click back on my video whenever you want, because I'm not going to show the screen.
Oh, I am muted. Good call. Oh, I didn't get any sleep. Make sure to shamelessly plug 510 weeklies. No, I can't do that. Is Cosmic the cat? No. MC re-entering the demand zone. Need some hype for the lull. Can you do uni recipes? I mean, it's an oven. You can cook all the things that you would cook in an oven in it. If you were a marine-based mammal, what mammal would you be and why? A whale? Because of the teeth. You need them for MOASS. Very serious and contemplative moment tonight. Please take a long, slow drag as you ponder your response. We need a Dan warning at the beginning. It must be a full gamut of the Dans, including a shameless plug of the Gospels. I'll consider it. We try not to scare them away with the Dans too early. Let them find out about the Dans. Let them come to accept them. You can't just go around throwing Dans in people's faces. Or throwing Dan's faces into people, whichever way it works. I have a bad echo. I can't fix that. Can I? No? No echo? Okay. All right. So it's just... No, I'm not doing audio on Discord because I'm using Discord to talk to him. All right, 1 second. It's Cosmic Warrior. We see my milestone chat, but ask him how order execution is from space. Thanks for the time to do this. It's been pretty funny out there. We all need a moment to chill. For sure. Clip button showing up on other live streams, but not PyFaz. Yeah, I don't have a clip button. I don't know why. Tonight's drinking game. Drink a drink every time someone says dicks. Oh boy. Hey man.
You're muted.
No. Am I? No, I'm not muted.
There he is. I can see him. I see the bottom right over your left shoulder or right shoulder, the mute button on your thing.
Where?
On your Discord.
What? Am I muted? No, I'm not muted.
Did we break it?
I don't know what happened.
Turn on camera. There we go. My camera's on.
Okay. Can you not hear me? You can't hear me.
I swear to God, we just tested this.
Wait, did you? Shit, we did. You got your output set to your headphones?
Oh, I have you muted. That's me.
Yep.
I'm an idiot.
That's
there
okay.
We go. All right. Hey, man. How you doing?
Doing all right. What's up?
All right. Let me turn my rock music off. Dude, I'm excited to talk to you. Thanks for hanging out. I know
absolutely.
You go long during the day, long and strong all day long, and everybody's screaming, "Hey, you gotta talk to this guy." So I figured you're the guy.
I'm a guy.
Well, I'm glad you're here, man. It's fun. We were talking a minute ago before we went live, which is how we have different takes on GME and this whole situation. A little bit. I mean, I you're busy. I'm busy. It's hard to watch each other's stuff. There's so much stuff out there. I think it's hard for everybody to consume any like entertainment anymore.
Yeah,
like
there's not a lot of time in the day.
It's back in the day. You would remember when people used to have TV shows? They would like sit around with their family and watch. Like Monday nights, we got to watch our show. Did you ever have that?
Kind of. I mean, I don't know. Not really. So
did you have a family?
I have a family.
Okay, good.
A minimal one, but I didn't really have a TV when I was little.
Okay.
So
nice.
Not by choice, obviously. It was just, and so it was never really a thing. It was like
I grew up
read books or go to bed.
I feel that. I grew up in a trailer, so I was the same way for a long time. I get that totally. Yeah, man, it's the collab we didn't wait, I can't read. The collab we needed but didn't deserve. Yeah, I agree. This is exciting. We got the VWAP champion himself here. Dude,
Yep.
I don't really have like a lineup of questions. People sent me questions, but I want to get those like a little bit later, but
Yeah, I've got some too. Most are ridiculous on Mimi, obviously, but I don't think
I
you guys
think,
are ready for the degenerates in chat. Probably not.
dude, it's about to pop off. I think the main thing everybody wants to know is how many shares do you have and what did you spend on them? I'm just kidding. Dude, I hate when people ask me that question. I'm like, dude, I'm not telling you. Like, but it's a metric fuck ton, but that's all you need to know.
More, some days more than I ever wanted to buy. Other days, not enough.
I know. And it's
So-
like moments where we go through these dips like this. I think we can agree on this. It's, I just wish I had more ammo sometimes.
I wake up every morning, and I was telling someone this the other night. I wake up every morning and I look myself in the mirror and I'm like, today's the day that you're going to finally admit that you're a fucking bag holder and you need to walk away. And then I go and I boot up my computer and I buy more. And it's like, what are you going to do?
Why do you feel like that? Why do you feel like you're a bag holder though? Do you feel like it's because it's such a long battle, a war?
Oh, I mean, dude, it weighs on everybody, right?
Yeah.
Like-
I think people are lying themselves if they say it doesn't.
The whole GameStop play, I mean, like, I'm a trader, and like the whole GameStop play goes against everything fundamentally I should believe in, right? Like I'm supposed to buy into stocks and wait for them to go up and then sell them. Or, like Wall Street bets, you buy in and wait for yourself to lose some money and then sell. But either way, you generally don't hold anything for a long time. And so I've held some other stocks in the past for a really long time, like AMD. And that was a battle. It was real similar to this, FUD everywhere, massive short positions, tons of, like that short and distort strategy where the MSM is just constantly bombarding you with negative sentiment. So I'm a little more used to it, but it's a haul,
It's crazy how long that's been going on. Like the more I learn about this shit, the more I realize how long that strategy you just explained has been going on with so many different types of stocks. And just so happens we all come together for the stock that we really love, GME, individually, but collectively understand what's going on. And that because of that, it's like when I heard that, the best way to describe it for me was like the Jim Cramer clip of him explaining how I think he must have been on heroin or something when he talked about all the secrets, but he gave like a playbook for exactly what they do. And he admitted it's not legal, but technically we do it anyway. And I was like, that's almost verbatim what he said. I was like, this is insane.
I mean, hedge funds, especially big hedge funds, they spend their entire existence riding that line between illegal and legal, what's ethical, what's not. And, a lot of it seems really, really terrible. And it is. I mean, like, it's not fair and it's not our market, right? But we've never really participated in it. Most people stay out of the markets. Most people like you and me would probably never get involved in them. There's that intergenerational fear that exists throughout all of retail where, your grandma told you to shove your money in a mattress and, your mom was like, make sure you fund your 401k without probably even knowing how a 401k worked or that it was a traded asset. Right. And, it gets to us and everyone got some stimulus money and had some extra capital for the first time probably in their lives. And they're walking in to, someone else's playground and they're going, wow, this is a really shitty playground. And that's tough. That's a tough lesson to learn. I mean, when I first started trading, I guess, I went to school for this. I expected some of it, but my mind was really blown at the amount of just manipulation that is just commonplace, and we're really getting a window into the worst parts of it with GME. That's tough.
I agree. And I think a lot of it has to do what you said about burying your money in your backyard. Like when I think that happened at one point in history, but like
Oh yeah.
but I think that a lot of it has to do with hedge funds. I keep saying are masters of loopholes and systems that they don't ever think anybody will understand or care to learn, because the bigger problem, and without getting political or anything, it's just like it's educational. Financial education is not really a thing. And
Yes.
even like it's kind of like diet and exercise, where you have to just seek this shit out on your own. And most of the information you find is horrible.
Yes.
And they don't
I
teach you how to do
100%
it.
agree.
Yeah, they don't teach you how to do it. So then you're just stuck either guessing or like people like to, nowadays people forget that when you and I were growing up, I mean, it dates us a little bit, but there was no internet for a while.
Yeah.
It was just like you had to go to a library to learn something. So like and really the internet didn't really get good until like 2006 or 2006, 2008-ish. So the ease of like learning has also created the problem of too much crappy information out there. And then people are just inherently lazy to where, or they don't know what the truth is anymore too, because that's the other side of social media. So it's like you have all this clusterfuck of just a tornado of shit and lack of knowledge or truth that combines into this, ease of use app like Robinhood, or ease of like trading through even like a desktop thing like E-Trade has gotten easier to use than it used to be 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But what happens then?
It's so much more accessible now. I mean, options trading. I mean, you can log into a platform like WeBull or Robinhood, and you can be trading margined options, which are wildly risky.
Yeah,
Within
somebody asked
minutes.
about that. Can you explain that? Like some people think, do you have to trade on? Because all right, I'll go for your viewers. Just didn't mean to interrupt you, but I'm not an options guy. I'm more of like a person who understands what's going on and tries to articulate that as best I can so everybody can understand what's going on, and to the best of my knowledge, and I don't talk about shit I don't know, or I don't feel like I've learned enough about. So options is one of those things I don't know. So tell people who don't know about options. They're asking me about buying on margin. Like, what's the difference?
Okay, well, a margin is essentially the broker will front you an equal amount of money based on your holdings. In order
Can you use your gold for that? Like, if I turn in gold, can I do that?
I mean, if they convert it to cash,
Those gold's cash for gold. I'm just kidding. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go. It's so essentially they're letting you gamble with their money, and what it is more that you get additional leverage through their purchasing power, at the risk of liquidating your original holdings. You don't need margin to trade options. I trade options for a living, and I don't even, I have one margin account that I use to sell puts at like sell to open, which means like opening put contracts, because you need margin for that. But yeah, if you're like buying calls or making like a bullish play or a bearish play, you don't need margin. You can just use a cash account, and then you don't risk any additional capital besides the premium cost of the option contract itself.
Okay. So how long do you think is the learning curve for someone to get sped up to options, going from no knowledge to feeling pretty comfortable with what they're doing? Because there's always like a learning curve and like a fall on your face, like
I agree.
crawl till you run.
It's a question I get asked 100 times a day, and even though, I mean, I'm sure we'll get into this later, even though I see a benefit for options in this whole GameStop saga, I tell everybody the same thing, and it's start looking on Investopedia and learning the terms you don't understand. Start with your broker's materials on options, calls, puts, learn your options Greeks, which are the values that determine the pricing of a contract through the Black-Scholes model. And then I tell them to pick up options as a strategic investment, which is a book by Macmillan. It's a textbook. It's huge. And just start digging into it. If it's something you really want to know about, and leverage positions or something you're interested in as an investor, they do present a great way to not only invest long-term, they present a way to invest short-term. They present ways to make profits off of holdings you already have via covered calls or cash secured puts. Sometimes you can build options positions that are even more risk adverse than the underlying stock, as long as you know what you're doing. And then I tell them to get a paper trading account and practice. Practice with no money until they really feel comfortable with the systems and how everything works, long before you ever invest real capital into options, because they do present risk, even though going long or short via a call or put may only risk the premium. Other strategies can risk quite a lot more.
That makes sense. Everything you just said, I think if I snort like 3 Adderall, I think I can learn that in a night.
Probably.
I'm just kidding. I don't recommend that.
No, everyone, and I always hear, that the people tell me that they can't learn without having skin in the game, and I've got to say that's bullshit. You definitely can. You got to treat it like a video game. You need to get. I think most new traders, the biggest problem is they never get that euphoria out of their system. They don't learn to manage their positions with logic instead of emotion. And I think just doing that paper trading over and over and over again really just gets that out of your system, because by the time you approach it, you're bored, you're seasoned, and you're going to approach it much more logically and much more risk averse.
Yeah. I think that's the thing, is like getting people, even that sounds like complicated for people. So it's if people like the path of least resistance with things.
Oh, of course.
The idea of learning that stuff, number one, is a hassle. They got to seek out the information or pick pieces out of like somebody's YouTube video that might help them understand the piece that they're missing. Or go the next step is after they got a baseline understanding, then take it and practice it. Like take ground balls and get your swings in. But then you got to go a step further and go back to what you learned and relearn it again, just to see where you're messing up. They got to keep on like learning and learn. I don't know. Some people are just not a fan of that, but I'm a big fan of learning and just getting better at everything. So that's one reason I want to talk to you, because like I think we can keep learning from each other and figuring this shit out. And I think that's part of the problem.
That's what I try to do with the channel. Is I I just try to make it a place where people can come to learn more.
Yeah.
And for the people that are interested in that, awesome. For the people that aren't, I don't care. You don't have to check out my stuff.
Yeah.
But for the people that are, I really try to foster an environment where they can learn from each other. Like they can participate and they can learn and they can experience the markets every day and make themselves more seasoned over time. And that's what it takes. It takes sitting in front of that ticker. I mean, you play games, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. What do you play? Like FPS?
I play, yeah, mainly. I used to play Halo competitively. So
okay.
I play.
So
now
about the grind, right? 10,000 hours in to
anything.
Yeah. If you want to be good at it, that's what you got to put in. And some people really do. Some people, they hate their jobs, they hate their careers. And the idea of, working from market open till 10 a.m. every day really appeals to them, but they don't want to put in the effort that it takes to get to that point. And I try to create an environment where that's more enjoyable.
Yeah. And that's cool. I like that. And I know you talked to Trade Spotting. He's good too. Like, you guys are very knowledgeable on what you're doing too. Is like, I don't even know what I like to be. I just like to build a community and just like do shit I like to do and talk about stuff I like to talk about. And one of those things happens to be GameStop and all the stuff I've already known and then start uncover more and more of. I think everybody without question since last January has learned at least something.
I think most people have learned more than they ever wanted to know.
I know. And it's crazy. And like one of my favorite ways to learn, I always heard the best way to learn is to teach. You ever heard that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, so part of the reason I started making stuff was basically so I could keep making myself learn it more. Because then it became like a fun thing to do, to dive into this deep dive in this stock and that I like. Obviously I'm in space. Obviously I play games, but what is this other side of shit that really affects everybody? Because what we're talking about is the lack of financial education, the the manipulation, whether you're playing the stock casino or not, or whether historically people have gotten into that or not. I mean, traditionally it's a pretty boring thing, and it's like it's a pretty mundane thing to learn about. So people, most people avoid it, but we're in an information age where I feel like people should, within their community, be trying to build each other up. And one of the ways is I think, especially talking about this, because it's so fucking crazy what's going on.
I mean, I think the stock market's the best video game I've ever played.
That might be one reason I like it so much, is because it is like a game and it's addicting. And also I like gambling. I like the casino. I think we all do, but I think I like playing blackjack and craps, and like I'm really into like winning pretty much anything. But like I think I just like I enjoy competition. Even when I lose, I like to learn from it. But I don't know. All right, so so before we keep going, what do you think? Let me ask you a question. What do you think about, what is your full, I don't know how to sum this up. Like, what is your thoughts on the MOASS in totality? Like, if you could say it, you can go as long as you want. I don't really know a good way to ask that question. But so like, if someone came to you and said, what is the GME MOASS, or what do you think about it? What would you say?
I would say that it's been a, there was a quote a while back, and I'm going to mess it up. Where's this? It's a strategic. No, that's just because the stock's down today and because people dared me to put it up. No, it's a strategic cornering of a short position by an entity that doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. I mean, that's the nicest way to put it, right?
Yeah.
And it's mind-boggling at the same time. It's so amazing to see retail banned but not banned together in this same ideal. And it speaks volumes for the change that me and your generation and the generation right after us want to see in the world, and I think it's more than just a short squeeze, obviously. Don't get me wrong, I'm in it to make as much money as I feasibly can, but at the same time, it means so much more than just that. And we have, in my opinion, we have successfully and strategically cornered a short position with essentially no collusion, right? I mean, you try pitching an idea to the GME community, and whew.
You try saying anything on Reddit without getting fucking destroyed.
It's a tough hill to stand on, but I think it's worth it.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, for me, it's like uncovering corruption at the end of an era. So, before an empire falls, I feel like you always see like some mass rise up in knowledge or the community. And I'm not like a history buff, but it just feels that way if I look back on like history and in general. So like, to me, we're moving into a new digital metaverse blockchain world where this old form of fuckery and stock certificates and everything that can be manipulated by the good old boys club in a loophole within a loophole, because I made the loophole, and then my buddy down the street, he's running the loophole monitoring system. And then, by the way, the person that finds us is also sleeping with my wife, so he's married in, so he's not going to screw me, because it's a big inside game.
Yeah, and no, it is.
So that's how it feels. And I feel like as we move into an NFT driven society, and people don't even know what the hell that is half the time, but it's a space race right now for that. It's almost like the masses are uncovering it, because you can call it, I don't know, mass retardation or whatever you want to call it. But like, there's just so many people online that eventually something like this had to pop up or would have popped up. And I think you see it time and time again with like a lot of things where people are coming to realize, oh, this or that about what's really going on with like conspiracies and in certain realms. But we've, like you said, unintentionally stumbled across a strategic cornering of a short position. And to me, that's exciting, because like you said, I like games, and I feel like I already know how to win. I already know how to win. And as I'm learning the game more, it's just more obvious to me that I've already won. I haven't seen it play out yet.
I mean, we're all gamers. Like, I don't think you'd be hard pressed to find very many people in all of this that didn't grow up grinding RPGs or, playing shit on Xbox Live or whatever,
Yeah.
like we've all been through it, and like so we're used to it. It's a bad audience to fuck with when you're a short hedge fund, because we're patient, we're taught patience in a different way maybe, but patient nonetheless. But I kind of agree with you. I think societies start to see their own disparity created by the efficiency of the system they live in, and become disenfranchised with it, and push back. And I think we saw that over the course of the pandemic. I think we're seeing that with GameStop, and I think ultimately people are coming to realize that it doesn't matter what side of the fence you're on or what politics you believe in. Like, it's ultimately a wealth disparity that runs the system, right? It's this rich versus poor, and it's much better to keep the poors fighting amongst one another than to have them notice what's going on.
Well, it obviously pissed everybody off in 2008 or with the Occupy Wall Street shit, for good reason. Yeah. And then now it's even worse because you have the internet that has successfully figured out how to come after people. And when you get a collective that has no political alignings, no cultural, ethnic, no nothing, just we found out this is injustice, and the people doing it traditionally, the masses don't really think great of rich people. They're kind of just like, oh, they're it is what it is. It's like we're like Stone Cold Steve Austin versus and hedge funds are Vince McMahon is what I want. And I want a beer truck to come out and just like spray them all over. That's what I want. But I want the tendies to be flowing. I want it to be like I don't know where I was going with that, but
I like the analogy.
Yeah, I had it in the first half. I'm not gonna lie, but but man, it's just so interesting to me to see like these. There's so many different theories out there with this whole thing. But what I really came to understand before January is still true, that the short position, as I like to say, has infinite risk. And when we have uncovered the manipulation that keeps going on and the way they hide it, I think it just came out today that what is the ETF that's so heavily shorted right now? What is it?
XRT.
Is it XRT? That's it. And that is something I didn't know. I had to learn that there's a way for them to hide short positions in ETFs. Yeah. and when that came to light, I was just like, I keep finding more ways that I feel like, okay, I'm right in this. We haven't had the moment yet where we get to say, I told you so, but it's going to be the best one ever, in my opinion. But I keep finding more ways along the way that aren't like, hey, did you see the new JFK files? Even though that might be true, but it's not like somebody hands you something new about some weird conspiracy that you're like, okay, now I can tell everybody the Earth is flat because of this. But I keep finding more ways where, like, logically, mathematically, the pieces are there that say I am right about this shit. It's not a conspiracy. It's just like, it just is what it is. It's just bullshit that we've uncovered that we've already won. They just don't want to pay us.
I mean, yeah. It's I think you're in a group with a lot of people in this, and that, like, the longer you've been in it, the more you've realized, and the more flaws you see in the system.
Yeah, well, maybe that's just the way it was. Yeah, I mean, it's a design flaw, in my opinion. It's not like a glitch that came up. It's like the way. I don't know if you ever worked in corporate. Maybe you have, but when I worked at a corporate setting, I worked at some pretty big companies. I worked at an insurance company at one point, and then I worked at a technology company. And one of the first one was, it's basically people putting their hopes in it was long-term care insurance at one point. So it was basically, and this is way before I got struck by lightning, had my incident, but it was, it's the end of their life. And they're putting all their eggs in this basket. But what we're using to manage those systems was a piece of shit built on top of a piece of shit built on top of a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And that is the same. Yeah. It's like the the crappy system built on top of the crappy system, and then to go over the technology company that has this great front image, but then underneath it's just like a layer of bullshit on top. It's like putting glitter on a zit. It was horrible. So I was like, this doesn't make it better. It doesn't solve the problem and putting something pretty on top. And to me, that's like how the stock market is built. It's a layer of shit that had like a good
after another.
Right, a good concept or an interesting concept, but it's like, well, then the people who figure out how to make money figured out this way without alerting the people that they were screwing. And then once they figure out, they put another loophole in until it finally ends up being where everyone's borrowing so much money, they're hiding things. It's like, whose line is it anyway? The rules are made up and the points don't matter, except for the ones that are making the money. And for us on the losing side, we're just like, this is bullshit. You know?
Yeah, it's a tough nut to crack, right? I mean, it's people, regular everyday people, you know, have spent so little time participating in it that no one's really acknowledged what was going on, right? And then you know,
that's true. It's
a system built on efficiency, and you know, exploitation of loopholes, and you know, they're gonna their entire reason for existence is to push towards, you know, that razor edge between, you know, finding a loophole and committing a crime, because that's where the most profit is to be made, right? And that's their goal as a hedge fund. In just complete disregard to everything else, their goal is to make money, profits over profits, year over year. Make investors happy. It's incentivized at even the lowest level with bonuses, and it's incentivized at the top. And you know, it's a system built to breed corruption. And so to fix that corruption, when it gets bad enough, a Band-Aid is applied. And until that happens, until that breaking point happens, until, you know, something goes wrong, it's let run, essentially uncontrolled. And honestly, the only thing that really controls it is the parties that participate in it. Like, you know, everyone always says that, like, especially the last couple of weeks with the price down and people being sad, you know, everyone's like, you know, they just have infinite power. They have infinite control over the price of the stock. And, really, they don't, right? Because
talk to me about that. The price is down and it's been a while. They got deep pockets. They've got deep pockets. And, you know, you see things online, the question goes up at least 100 million times a day. Someone's like, how long can they do this? You know,
it's limited.
What do you think about that?
It's a system built. It's a system built on equilibriums, right? And so by compressing it to either side, long or short, that's going to create asymmetric risk between one party and another, right? Because no trade is singular. If you short a stock, someone buys that share, you borrowed it from someone, there's counterparties everywhere, right? And you know, the counterparties are probably the best check and balance that there is in the system. You know, that's what and I know everyone thinks it's all collusion, but it is and it isn't. You know, yes, there's probably talking among, you know, these entities, but like ultimately, if they did have all the power in the world, GameStop would be at $0, right?
Yeah. You know, you would think. I think, like you said earlier about them trying to make profit is what I think about sometimes with people who are obsessed with money or have no morals in general. Like their life is built upon be as successful as I can, make as much money as I can. If they have nothing else, like no spirituality or anything like that, that's all life is to them. So with a hedge fund, I think of it the same way, like you said, where it's like they're making profit. That's why you hear Ken Griffin or anybody get on and they just keep saying the same shit, like they are doing the morally right thing, because I think they genuinely believe it at this point. And I think that you're right. It can't go on forever. I think it cannot go on forever. I think it's a problem of the system that's built on. But I think it's gone on longer than we expected, or it should have, because if it would have enforced the right way, it would have happened in January. But because it keeps going on and on, we are realizing how much money and how deep their pockets go, but really how bad the problem of lending is. So somebody like me on my side of the table, I'm sitting here thinking to myself, well, they keep putting off this credit card bill forever and ever and ever. And I get that they have deep pockets, but when you start borrowing from daddy and mommy and the hooker down the street to pay this credit card bill, because essentially that's what they're doing. They keep delaying or hiding and delaying and hiding. Eventually, it will come to light. It just has to. And like in history, they always have a fall guy to protect them. Certain entities protect themselves, but it's not like corruption really goes on forever. They might just let it crash or happen in order to set up a new system. So I think behind the scenes right now, there has to be talks of who the fall guy is. Or what's going to happen for that.
Like, if you think of this as like a prime hedge fund kind of environment where the prime lenders are the ones margining these positions, they're just waiting for these hedge funds to fuck up and fail like Archegos. And then they just swoop in and they take those liquidated assets, they buy them up, and they distill that power amongst themselves and grow bigger, and that's their goal. That's all they do is they just wait for crashes, they buy everything up. I mean, look at BlackRock and where BlackRock was pre 2008 versus post 2008. Look how much they've grown.
Yeah.
And they're a perfect example of that, that consolidation of power. And so when people say like, oh, no one's ever going to let, Kenny fail or Melvin fail, it's bullshit. They can't wait because they got to go in and they got to take Kenny's, $250 billion in assets under management, and they got to buy it at a quarter of the price.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah.
And then they're just even bigger. So, it's not that like these entities like Fidelity or Vanguard or BlackRock are our friends, but the enemy of my enemy.
Right. Exactly. And so then I think I already know the answer here, but why do you think another large entity hasn't come in and tried to dismantle Citadel, or at least go up against them to push them, at least push this in a stock that's unmanageable for them at this point? And I know it's more than Citadel. I'm just using them as an example.
No, yeah. So I mean, let me just clarify this, because I think this is a question I get a lot, but you're wording it a little differently. Do you want to know why a whale in shining armor hasn't come down from the heavens and blessed us with our attendees and squeezed the fuck out of Citadel?
Yeah, give it to me.
Oh, it's institutional risk.
I get that question a lot. Yeah,
it's pure and simple. There are a few, but very few funds that have full discretion over what they do with other people's money. But you have to remember, these funds are other people's money. They're private investor funds. They are public funds. The money they invest has to be accounted for to their investors. And GameStop is a risky asset. We may love it to death. We may believe in all the potential future of it, but it presents institutional risk. They are not going to accept the same valuation model of, full bull that we have. And that's it. So we will see hedge funds like Rentec and things come in. We will see smaller funds or ETFs come in and buy GameStop. But the buying will be minimal until the issue with risk and volatility are solved. So like Goldman Sachs isn't going to come in and buy, $1 billion worth of GameStop to fuck Citadel, even though it gives them a ton of advantage. They're one of the other three NYSE DMMs, and I'm sure they'd love to split up Citadel's share with Virtu, but they're not going to come in and do that because there's risk. There's risk, and these guys don't take risk. That's what they don't do.
But knowing that risk, but in some ways you could argue they do take risk, which is why they have so much money. And so they have to take some big plays and risks to do that. So why do you think, I know some have, but why do you think no one sees what we see on Wall Street, or are they afraid to take a big position, or is it like I feel like
we're in a different economic position, right? We're in a position, we're all broke for the most part, right? At least by their standards, right? I mean,
yeah,
pennies to any dollar we have, or any dollar they have, and they don't need to. We do.
yeah, that's true. Yeah,
You know,
but I that's true. But I guess my main point is like if there's so much knowledge in DD and information, and maybe are they just totally ignoring that? Do they not think it's possible of a MOASS? Because if it was me in a hedge fund and I saw what I see as me sitting right here, and I had the power to make a call or at least a small play and the potential for a squeeze, I'm jumping in on that, because to me the risk is, like you said, even though it's other people's money, I still think the value long term, if it did work out, would set me up for a huge success.
well, and there are funds that have bought into GameStop, right? Like Rentech. Remember Rentech's buy-in? Not that long ago.
No, I don't remember what it was. No, I didn't see what
Renaissance Technologies is like a small kind of in and out trading fund. Not small. They're very successful at what they do, but they have a lot of discretion. They can take risk like that. And they came into GameStop back in January, sold in January, came back in August, sold again. They just ran the up cycle of GameStop and got out. Right. And institutional money will do that. They will take their gains and they will walk, and they
more by the book.
Yeah, of course.
Even with the risk. Yeah.
Yeah. Even with the risk. And, they have their limits. Right. And when you get into like the big banks and the more strict hedge funds, they have risk models that they have to adhere to. They're registered fiduciaries. They have a responsibility to their investors to minimize risk. So they are not going to take that chance. Any play that somebody brings to the table will go through risk assessment. It will be determined too risky and denied.
Oh my God, that sounds horrible. That sounds like corporate, like, what's it called? Compliance. Oh my God.
Yeah, and then after risk assessment passes something, it has to pass through compliance too.
This is some bullshit, Pickle. They're uncovering compliance, fraud, and manipulation. Isn't unbelievable?
I mean, I don't think we need them either.
No, and I agree. And I just think it's interesting because I get that question all the time. And I mean, you brought up a lot of good points. And it's also just like they're going to play the fundamental play, which is still developing for GameStop, which is why they scream on the mainstream media about tell us the plan. They're almost.
I have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I want to hear it. Obviously the media runs with a narrative, but like, yeah, go for it.
Something happened that night, and it wasn't FOMO.
You had sex?
Huh?
Did you have sex that night?
No, I didn't.
Okay.
No nut ass for me.
No squeeze, dude. Come on, bro. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, something else happened that night. XRT went on the threshold list the following morning. It's likely, the most likely scenario is that XRT FTDs had to be covered, and they needed to explain a very large and dramatic price increase in GameStop after hours. And so they came out with that article, and it's a double-edged blade because it puts pressure on Ryan Cohen to release an announcement about their planned NFT project ahead of time before they're ready. And it's a dangerous situation to be in, especially because the media keeps rehypothecating. Again, most of these media companies owned by hedge funds keeps rehypothecating the same story and putting negative spin on it, like, retail's selling, retail's disenfranchised with the NFT idea. And realistically, GameStop hasn't announced a single fucking thing, right? Like they haven't said a peep, which is, I think their smartest course of action until they are ready. With the immediate negative media backlash that they are undoubtedly going to receive, they need to release a product, and I know no one wants to wait for it, but they need to release a product that is finished and groundbreaking.
Yeah, I agree
because
with you.
they're going to have to put up a hell of a battle.
Well, I tweeted that out today. I said that I just read an article today and I tweeted it out at Lightning Warrior, no G in Lightning, that the co-founder of Twitch, Justin, it used to be Justin TV, right? It's Justin from that co-founder of Twitch. He is now an investor because he sold to Amazon and made a shit ton of money. So now he's an investor in all these different companies. The main one right now he's interested in is this thing called Fractal. And Fractal, this past month, I didn't know until just today, it released exactly what we want, but like it's a gaming centric NFT marketplace that's fully functioning, looks user friendly. And he describes exactly what seems to be the path that GME or GameStop's going to be going down, which is NFTs for in-game items, for loot, for challenges, for skins, because it's a whole new ecosystem and economy. So to me, that's like just a fundamentally bullish thing for GameStop. But for us on the short squeeze side of it, it's a Ryan Cohen is close to the chest. I love that because it's art of war. But at the same time, there are so many people that are already entering the market and getting ahead, and it is a space race for it, you know. So I want it to happen today. I want them to release the marketplace today with Loop Ring, which is who I believe it's going to be, but who knows? Really, we don't know yet. But I think
there's
more
a few
than likely
platforms. There's a few platforms they could use. Loop Ring does seem to be the most likely,
in my opinion, and from what I see. But we also don't want them to release some piece of crap, half broken, what's it called? That game with Keanu Reeves. That was supposed to be amazing. What was that game? We don't want that.
We don't want a cyberpunk.
Yeah, cyberpunk. We don't want a cyberpunk GameStop NFT platform.
Nope.
No, we want something with longevity, like that has and scalability. So I said it's a race, and somebody commented and said, well, it's been going on for a while, blah 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 blah. And I said, or with a couple other NFT marketplaces, I said, well, I think Ryan Cohen's mentality is pioneers get slaughtered, but settlers prosper. And it's like, you don't have to necessarily enter in the market first, but you have to do it the best and the right way when you do. And it has to make a big, and their user base is that big splash. So they don't really have to like do a startup company and release to a test, amount of users. They can keep testing internally as much as they want. And they have this huge 50 million plus power up rewards, user base that they can just dump it right into.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think to really push it, Ryan Cohen has to develop something beyond even those expectations, right? Beyond even just a marketplace for video games or NFTs. I think he needs to develop a fundamental change in the gaming industry. And I think if he's successful, it would be tremendously profitable.
What do you think that is?
Well, I mean, I'm a gamer too, so like immediately my first thought is NFTs, in-game items, loot, challenges, skins.
That's the obvious stuff.
Yeah,
that's the
people in the community creating things and making money, and getting money, funneling money to creators, and people making mods for games, and that kind of stuff. And but then I got to thinking, like, why are the developers going to give up this market share? Why? Well, not the developers, right? The developers don't have a lot of power in the video game world. Why would the publishing houses give up that market share? Why would like they can just sell their own fucking in-game items, right? And they don't have to give GameStop any rights, and people are like, oh, used video games online, and I don't think that works because Sony doesn't want their game selling for fucking $15.99 when they can sell it for $19.99 because it's a digital copy and there's no manufacturing process, right? So they're not going to want GameStop to sell their game cheaper than they sell their game. And so to get the rights, how do you get them? And then I started thinking, like, we're kind of in this age where video games are all the same, right? Because they're driven by these profit machines, and it's just edition 5 and 6 and 8 and 9 and 10 of the same fucking game year after year. Skyrim on my fucking refrigerator, and like and
Call of Duty.
yeah, but what if Cohen really turns this into like an economy? What if Cohen takes these developers and offers them a way to get their game funded without the publishing house, and to release their content on his platform, selling tokenized copies of this game as a limited release, then gamers could become a shareholder in the game they want to see made.
I like that.
Then they can take their copy of the game and rent it out and sell it and make profits off of their initial investment.
And then the game has to do with two parts of the game. It's not just is the game good, but like you can see a 5-star rating based on how much that game is actually worth on the market. Because if it's a shit game, it's going to be, no one's going to want, no one's going to be buying extra copies.
It probably wouldn't get past the funding stage, right? But like, I see a lot of opportunity there for that. And not only games, movies, other types of entertainment, art, all of this could just be crowdfunded, but through NFTs, in a very, tradable equity type market. But also giving, the general public access to these investments that normally would be behind closed doors. If you look at like Hollywood publishing or game publishing, these are opportunities given to accredited investors. The public never has access to them at all. And this would just allow everybody in, if you want to buy into this, you can. And
if it's easy to use, that's the thing.
Yeah,
because like
it has to be easy to
OpenSea,
use. It has to be transparent. Especially now, it has to be transparent. And then after all of this shit, and but I think there's a lot of opportunities there for creating an economy and scaling it with the number of users that want to participate in it. Even in a down economy, entertainment does well. So even if our market crashes, there could be a lot of financial opportunity for people that maybe never had that before, if he does something like that. It's just an idea. Obviously, he could go any way with it. I'm sure my expectations are out of reach, but I think it'd be a smart move.
Maybe right now, but that could be a branch of it, because I see the whole thing turning into, I see our kids and our grandkids generation, and definitely our kids have a taste of it, but our grandkids will be living with the metaverse. And just at the rate of which everything's excelling, like, dude, like Facebook wasn't a thing until like 2006, and that wasn't that long ago. But like, think about how crazy the world is integrated now, where everything is run through that damn thing. And that wasn't that long ago. Like, there's a time where in my memory of being alive, that we didn't have the internet. We didn't have cell phones. Like, I remember when my grandpa got a phone in his car, I was like, what is this? And I was like, this is insane. And it's stuff like that. So it's like the rate at which technology is going to increase in our grandkids' lives, where we can see it, but maybe not even be able to use it to its full extent, is a metaverse world. So because of that, I see GameStop going into this digital future where they have to build an NFT marketplace to do just basic survival as a company long term.
Well, not only that, I mean, you look at the automation. Like, if you think of like automation and the value of human labor dropping in the next 20 to 40 years, what are we going to do? Right? Like, we need to find an economy that supports creation versus labor. And I agree. Like, I hate the fucking term metaverse, but I'll use it. I agree that that's gonna, that's gonna be where economic gains are to be had, right? Because, the farming and the labor and the factory work and, all of that is going to just become more and more automated. And
God, so, can you imagine going up against a farmer in Farmville in the metaverse? You would kick your ass.
and so, we're going to need, we're going to need people to fix all those automated systems, but we're also going to need to find something else for everyone else to do. And so
it's going to be a crazy, it's hard to, It's hard to
Yeah.
imagine there's so many different ways it could go. But I think
I mean,
Ready Player One's a
hopefully
good.
I've OD'd on my yacht by then, but
Yeah, baby. Woo! I would love that. Oh God, let's do it together. Just brother yachts, just touching tips at the in the harbor, and we'll just OD together at the same time while the world goes to the metaverse.
a flotilla.
That'd be great. But then we can upload our souls, like the show Upload, and then we can live forever in the metaverse 2.0, aka heaven.
That's fine.
You know, dude, let's do it. Okay, we have a covenant now. We have an agreement. So you talked about, obviously we talked about options earlier, but you said what? Okay, so I don't know. I mean, there's two different camps with options right now. I feel like they're split. There's option people.
They shouldn't be, but they are.
And I made it, and I talked about it in a video. The recent video that just came out with Gradante, whatever.
It's got a D. Yeah, I think so.
Hedge fund guy named Mr. Smith, and he was talking about call options, in particular with GameStop, and then that led everyone to say, "See, I told you so." And I know you've been talking about it for a while. I know you've been talking about options for a while. I've been in the other camp of, unless you know what you're doing, don't do it. All you have to do is buy and hold.
Okay.
And
so
DRS, we can talk about later.
I'm straight up going to just agree with that statement completely. If you do not understand options, do not fucking gamble your money away. Your money is truly better spent on buy, hold, and DRS. It really is. I can't emphasize that enough. Not only that, you have to have the capital to risk, right?
Right.
Like,
yeah.
You can't. Unfortunately, and this is the worst part about it. You can't be poor, really, to do options on GameStop. It is a high risk endeavor. But on the other side of that coin, there's a lot of people who can,
right,
and know how, and they should probably not hesitate to do so.
Yeah, I think the thing is, I think when it happened in January, what that guy was saying, he said in that I'm not going to play the whole thing but at the beginning he says it would look like it was call options, but he says, but what actually happened was Citadel was illegally short selling. He goes on this long rant. Mm-hmm. So in one breath he says it was this, and then he says it was also this thing, or it was this that caused.
It's a lot of things.
And then yeah, because then the SEC says it was FOMO, retail buying in, and they didn't even mention any of that shit. But my point is, I think at that point, if you were in the option play, it definitely helped, and I think it was definitely way lower cost of entry at that time.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, it was. Which
allowed that
high.
ramp to be faster.
So it's tricky, right? By the time most people started buying into the GameStop run in January, it was already expensive as it is now. And what they did was, they bought short-term contracts, which are cheaper, right? They have less theta value, which means time until they expire. And so they were going to expire sooner, and so hence the contracts were cheaper, and people FOMO'd into those like crazy. Unfortunately, that's not what was needed to kick off MOASS. It helped drive the price action, don't get me wrong, but ultimately that strategy failed, right? As we know, after January 29th, the price started to come down, hit $40. We stagnated there until February 25th, and we began to run back up again. So options were likely the primary driver of the price action that occurred in January, if not the only driver of that price action. They could be again, but it's a very different scenario now than it was then.
So how do you see it playing out as far as that goes? Because if it's harder for people to get in, and then the people that could get in are a little bit less likely to now, or maybe they just are, let's just even say like just a lesser percentage are excited about the play that as they were in January, right? It just has to be naturally.
What do you think can happen next? I think our zealotous adherence to buy and hold has created an environment that is so illiquid. That options
say it again
illiquid that options in essence have far more leverage than even they appear to on the surface, you know, and only possible because of buy and hold.
Mhm.
Can the same effect be had with far less pressure, right? And hear me out. You know, if that pressure is realized and the price goes up, the FOMO from last year is chomping at the bit always.
Mhm.
So I
Hashtag
guess,
Shib Army.
yeah.
I don't know what your thoughts about Shib are, but
I mean, it's the same. It doesn't matter what, you know, group of
that's what my point
investors,
is.
Doge, SHIB, AMC,
FOMO.
everyone in the world has been waiting a year for GameStop to run hard, and
Damn right, baby.
they will pile in.
That's what I'm
And the
saying.
institutions that stand idly by and
Yeah.
avert the risk, they don't need to hold the floor. Their money is better used elsewhere, right?
Mm.
They can invest in other shit all day, and they don't care if the price runs a little, right? Because they can pile in at any price. You know, JP Morgan can buy the stock at $1,000 a share. They don't give a fuck. They might lose a little leverage,
Mm.
but you know, if they think a short squeeze is going to occur, they can buy in at any point.
That's
So
so true
why
too.
they're not going to, but they're also simultaneously, they're not going to tie up their capital, right?
Mhm.
They're not going to do it. We have to do that, right? We have to buy and hold because we can't shift our capital elsewhere. They can.
Yeah.
They are very liquid and very flexible in the positions that they have to maintain. So
Yeah, that
yeah,
makes sense.
unfortunately, they will let us hold the floor for them, but at the same time, they can catalyze our movement.
I think so too. And that's what I've been saying for a while. It has to be buy, hold, and DRS. I think everyone is just a little antsy or falling asleep at the wheel now. And I think that it's just and I think there's a lot of, you know, optimism to stop being poor and finally be rich. So there's excitement behind like, okay, like I'm so tired of waking up at 4 a.m. and I'm so excited to have a Lambo or a car or whatever. Maybe just like pay the bills. I think that's most people. They just want to pay their fucking bills
I think,
and
yeah.
have them free. So there's this whole, sentiment of like, I'm ready for it now. But then it's also like unrealistic expectations of how deep their pockets can run us. But in the meantime, it's not like it can happen forever, like we said earlier, because it has at some point the rubber will meet the road, or it'll come to the ocean where they can't drive their car any further. It might be, we thought we were like at a coastline or could see it, but we really didn't. And now we're at some point they have to stop this shit. And for now, we're at a situation where they damn man, it's just like all you have to do is wait, buy, hold, and in my opinion, DRS, because that is just taking their power. At least you know that your shit's in your name, and the brokers can't fuck with that in that way. Like
Yeah,
the way they're learning
I
about
understand. I mean, I'm sure you know that I have not DRS'd.
now. I don't know that.
Oh yeah, I have not DRS'd.
Go ahead,
Not
explain it.
not
Explain
one
yourself.
single share. Initially, and still, I want to see proof of efficacy.
In what way?
And I know people are gonna say, I want to see a real effect on the failure to delivers in GameStop month over month, and I'll wait. I've already held my shares for a year now. I'll hold them longer. There's a rush to DRS, but it doesn't matter if my shares are the first to be DRS'd or the last. I just want to see the effect, right?
Unless that Titanic pulls out. Yeah, it does. But unless that Titanic pulls out and you jump too late, and you're just soaking wet, staring at that big bitch go by. But I'm just saying that'd be such a rare situation. I know what you mean. Yeah, I get you. But to me, spread it out my wrist and be like, even if I was in your camp and your brain, I would be like, all right, let me just do 5 of these some bitches or 10 and just like have, and then I can do the rest later. But to me, I at least had the same mindset when DRS became so popular,
Of course,
because
yeah, a lot of people did.
I understood I mean, I think everybody understood the idea that you could register your shares. Maybe it was new to some people, but like nobody understood what it could or should do for the stock as far as taking it, uh, in theory, or at least what they print on the paper, out of the DTC and into your name, or out is seemingly out of the control of the manipulation.
I mean, it prevents
That's general concept.
lenders from holding the shares in their street name and lending them or using them to affect a locate on a short position.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where this should prove that the DTC takes just like Dr. T said, there's a documentary that says the same thing. They basically take one certificate and sort of carbon copy it, but not physically, just digitally. And so it appears in everybody's accounts as they have that, but it's really only one, but it's oversold many times.
Yep.
So it's really an exciting thing for me for DRS to see, okay, we own the float, let's see it, and let's register this shit, and then let's see what happens. Because to me, that's one of the things that could trigger this bitch beyond an NFT dividend, which should, in theory, allow them or make them close out their positions. So that's my thoughts.
That's fair. I guess I don't see it as much of a catalyst as a lot of people do.
I think it's a worst case scenario catalyst.
Maybe. But even if retail owns 100% of the float and we register 100% of the float, I don't see how we end up in a world where that makes a difference. Like, I don't think anybody's under the impression that GameStop is not 100% owned or more, right? I'm sure that, you know, the relevant checks have been done on GameStop's liquidity. We've seen liquidity tests live occur in the market, you know, on days where we've traded 800,000 volume and all of it within like 6 candles, right? And that's what they're doing. They're checking the liquidity, right? And like no major institutions are under the impression that this stock is not manipulated or that, you know, retail doesn't own 100% of it. And so, I mean, I guess everyone's hope is that they DRS 100% of the float, and then, you know, Ryan Cohen comes flying out of, you know,
his Iron Man suit,
and like declares that the float is owned, and I mean,
that'd be great.
For me, this is a guy who hasn't said anything except buckle up all year, and I don't see him then going and doing something like that. And I know people read into the tweets and stuff, but for me, I look at it as a market mechanic, and I look at it for what it is. And what it is it removes shares from the DTC, the DTC, and it limits the number of shares available in the SEC lending pool day by day. But at the same time, I'm looking at the data and I see short hedge funds not using the SEC lending pool. I see GameStop's borrow rate remaining flat over the course of the entire year. I see the shares available to lend from Fidelity and IBKR, who have a contractual obligation not to lend your shares as your fiduciary without your permission, stay relatively the same. The average shares available to borrow from Fidelity and IBKR have ranged between 0 and 800,000 for IBKR and 0 to 3.2 million for Fidelity, basically all fucking year. Before DRS, after DRS, it's been the same. But I also see short hedge funds using other systems of creation to obtain synthetic shares of GameStop that do not involve borrowing the shares that I own. And so while I agree that DRS drives liquidity, and that it does have potential, I do want to see the evidence of that potential.
I think it's just like, at some point I get what you're saying. I think at some point, we have to understand that even in this sea of manipulation and shit, whatever side you choose on, you have to choose at what point does the system actually enforce the rules, right?
Yeah.
So like at some point we're like, oh, this is manipulated, they're not enforcing. Oh, that's manipulated, enforce it. But then we're like, okay, when the MOASS happens, I want to be able to sell out of my broker, hope it works. Well, if you believe like everything's manipulated, they're not gonna. they will screw you too. So then you have to be like, okay, well, I don't have any options here. But at some point, you have to say, if DRSing works, right, then I'm at least going to hope that they follow that rule. So I'm going to DRS my shares into my name, and then once we get to 100%, well, then we can see if they enforce a rule or if they're still lending out shares that are in our accounts, because they say they don't. But
Yeah,
it has come out a couple of times that has come out a couple of times that they actually do, or they have, even though technically they say they can't. Sometimes I think like having too many variables or like too much borrowing and things that are just really digital ledgers. In theory, it should be like a QuickBooks account that gets balanced. But I think what happens is when you have that much lending back and forth and collateral debt, I think that people are just dead on the books. I think that things get overlent to the point where across the market, where this guy borrowed from that guy who borrowed from this guy, reborrowed from this guy who borrowed again. And I think there are even like some comedy skits out there that show how crazy that gets when that chain keeps going on forever to where no one knows what the fuck is going on. Yeah. And that, I think, that happens at the DCC, where they don't even know the true number of shares out there, because there's not a stack of paper somewhere.
I don't think they give a shit, honestly.
Right, because they're all making money, so they're not gonna give a shit until it actually pops and breaks.
Yeah, I mean, I see the end goal. Like, I understand it. I've read all the DD.
Storm the Capitol. No, I'm kidding.
I've read all the DD. I know the I know the people who wrote the DD. I've spoken with them over and over and over, and made sure that I fully understood everything I could about DRS. And I still see it as being the defense.
Right. The defense wins championships. You ever heard that?
Huh?
You ever heard defense wins championships?
I have. But someone's still got to fucking throw the ball into the end zone at least once, right? And
did you know in baseball? Wait, is it baseball? Baseball is when you're on offense. It's the only sport where you don't have the ball. Did you know that?
Makes sense.
Yeah, you learned something. You didn't think you were gonna learn anything from me, but there you go.
I mean, you hit it. Pickle. You hit the ball with a bat, right? You hope the ball doesn't touch you again after that, but
yeah, you're sort of in control of the ball at some point.
But yeah, I don't know. I see DRS. I see its effect. I don't think it's a bad thing, and I think a lot of people think that I'm against it. And no, as a matter of fact, I see it. I see it as our baseline, and I see it as possibly a slightly stronger baseline than the one we've held all year, right?
Yeah, and I agree with you, and I see your point totally. And that's what I've tried to explain to my viewers, especially over the past like couple weeks, is like, you have if you have like a big circle, as you start to get in smaller, it's like more people that believe in this thing. So it's like everybody has invested in GME, and a smaller group of that total pool is people that are long on GME, and then get smaller as people that believe in a squeeze, and then the people that are in super stonk, and then actually people that are DRSing is even smaller than that. So it's like a smaller subset of what is really out there.
Yeah, I mean,
so like a small baseline.
I think a lot of people on Reddit always assume that like super stonk is, the majority. Like we are like everybody on super stonk. We're the shareholders of GameStop, and in reality, we probably represent a large part of the shareholdings in GameStop by retail. But there's lots of people out there that probably bought in Feb and are like, I'm up, I don't give a shit, and just go about their lives. There's people that are just long GameStop. The 100% DRSers, and the people they just don't give a shit. They believe in the value of the company. They've probably invested before long term, and they'll just put their money in their retirement accounts and walk away. And there's people like me and for me it's always just a quest to know more and understand more about it, and put that into practice and test it and learn from that test and add more and what knowledge I can, and try to figure out what's going on with this. And I would say I'd put all of my effort almost for the last year into that goal.
So, okay. So let me stop you there. So that being the case, as somebody who's maybe more seasoned than some other people, I don't want to speak for everybody, but like, you have a little bit more experience than most. the average person that just like figured this shit out in January, right?
Yeah.
So, that being the case, what do you think about the whole idea of it as a whole? Because or do you feel like you've been like in an echo chamber too long? You know what I mean? I want to play devil's advocate. We both believe in it, right? So like you have, as an experienced trader, you see the bull run potential and the MOASS squeeze potential, and then you cross-reference that between everybody. So that like, someone to me that says, you know, I'm looking at it like this is probably one of the most peer-reviewed things on the internet. Is my point. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because I know there's other people in the other camp that don't agree, and you know, more experienced traders than you, who maybe on the opposite side, or hidden amongst us who actually believe the same thing. You know what I mean?
I mean, for me, after the March run, from Feb into March into earnings, and then the subsequent crash, right, of the price, and then it wasn't until they flash crashed it on like, it was like March 10th or whatever, when they dropped the price, you know, $100 and whatever dollars in a matter of seconds. It wasn't until that moment that I was 100% sure I was in the right play, or that I shouldn't just be trading it and taking my profits. Yeah. At that point, I knew they were desperate. It just reeked of desperation. And my time in the market has taught me that when you smell corruption and desperation, that's where you want to be. And definitely, that's what I see in GameStop. I see it every single day, and in different ways. And I've learned more about the markets than I ever wanted to know in this last year.
Same.
And
same here, man.
Knowledge I probably could have. I mean, so many theories and so much information has come to light, which has absolutely fucking nothing to do with GameStop. Like, reverse repo is a great example of just like something that everybody has gone on about for months. Still the reverse repo numbers are talked about, and it's completely fucking irrelevant to the position we're in, but it's talked about. And
I think the people talk about that, and what my stance on that was it just shows how over leveraged everybody is, and how like much of
I think it just shows how much liquidity they've pumped into the markets, right? Like, I mean, through JPOW has been sitting in the Fed just fucking printing out money like crazy, and I love him. Don't get me wrong. that son of a bitch has made me more money, and what people don't realize is has probably protected GameStop from failing as a position. I think the fact that he has sustained the market for so long is what has ultimately fucked these hedge funds. You know, these guys moved, a lot of them. Now GameStop they started shorting GameStop back in like 2014. Melvin did. But Citadel, Susquehanna, these bigger players, right? So Melvin's small in the world of hedge funds. Yeah. But, you know, we're looking at like 0.72, Citadel, now Sequoia. These guys are big players, right? They're not just short GameStop, right? They're short fucking everything because they think the market's going to fail. But JPOW's kept the market alive time and time again for the last
that's a good point,
year and a half. And that means that they have to keep dragging that fucking short position around like a rock until the market tanks, right? Because they're so the fucking market went up 30% last year. You know, crazy, imagine how crazy. Underwater a short position across all of retail discretionary. Just imagine how underwater that is.
At least 30% more.
Yeah, well, at least in some cases, quite a lot more, right? But,
I mean, dude. Honestly, it's like we said earlier. It's something, a theory I've always had, is the closer you get to a mirror, the more like dirt and gross stuff you see. You know what I mean? It's the same thing when you find out you have a little bit of life experience and you figure out how things in the world work. It's the same thing when you get deep down a rabbit hole of a conspiracy that's actually true. Not like you're just reading something to be entertained. But when you really find out like a conspiracy that seems to have a lot of backing to it, it's not just some nutcase thing. You're like, you get to the end of that rope and and you're just like, you just feel bad sometimes, you know. So it's like the things I've learned, and I think a lot of the frustration people have is like, it's more than occupies Wall Street at this point. It's more like I can't believe the shit that's going on. Like I just can't believe some of the horrible way the world is.
Yeah.
Which just, and so at the end of the other side of that is like, we're just like, I just want to see good people come out with the W, and them to finally, when the road, when that road ends and the show ends for them, I don't want them to be able to wiggle their way out of this. You know what I mean? Just from a human standpoint.
Me either. I mean, I don't know if you ever did you know who Warden was?
It sounds really familiar.
He was like
Warden Elite, the younger kid,
technical analysis guy, and he was doing stuff on GameStop, and I would follow along occasionally back then, and he was leaving, and I saw this kind of void between what he was doing and everything else that was getting written about on Reddit at the time. Everything else was this like broad range market conspiracy, like kind of stuff, but nothing really focused on the stock itself. And it was an area that I had experience with, and I felt that I could lend a voice to that, right? I was like, I would take 15 minutes out of my day, write a little bit about GameStop. And as I started to get into it, people had more and more questions, and they were like, you should stream so you can answer these questions. And so I started doing that, and that's kind of how I ended up as deep in it as I am now. And I don't know. It's been an interesting road.
So with Warden, what was your point about that? With Warden?
Well, he was offering, and he, I mean, he messed up pretty bad, but he was offering, this like fact-based background into GameStop. This not, there wasn't this conspiratorial view of the markets. He was just trying to track the price and show people what was going on. And I think
a lot of us
that would be missing.
Yeah.
And so, I kind of just took up that mantle and went with it. And I still try to provide that same, grounded perspective as much as I can. I'm just as bullish on the stock as anybody else, but I try to, and it's hard sometimes to view it, through a bearish lens or a negative lens, but I try to force myself to look at it from every perspective so we can see the advantages and opportunities that exist. And so we can see where the short hedge funds can benefit the most, and in reality, how they can try to fuck us. And I try to teach people that every day. I try to make sure that people know more about the markets, more about how to trade, how to use. I mean, how many people in GameStop have used their brokerage to do anything but hit the buy button? We're all chasing MOASS, but a lot of us don't even know how to fucking sell a share. And so
I would hope so.
There's some,
I would hope not for a long while.
Yeah, but I mean, this is shit that people need to know. And so it kind of started with that, and it became more over time. I wanted to make sure that when people did go to exit, that they weren't, floored at $1,000 and realized that the potential could be far higher, that they knew how to exit a high volatility event like that. It's not a common thing to come across in the market, but when it does happen, you need to know what the fuck you're doing. And my skill set as a trader, I thought would benefit people.
I like that. I mean, like you saw something that people weren't doing, and instead of it becoming just a conspiracy style thread, there's more back and value you could offer.
Yeah,
I get that. Yeah, I get that. That's good. And we need that, because like I love the purple rings in a way, but I also hate them because I just want to see. I like reading more facts to back up which this what I know to be true, but also like when you articulate it to anybody with zero knowledge, makes it sound like a conspiracy. There's no way to tell anyone with zero knowledge of this the gist of it. There's no elevator pitch. There's barely well, I guess you could, but it's like really hard to explain this in a way that doesn't sound conspiracy like. So when I can grab my hands on the math or the logic behind the trade, or have experienced veterans in the community lay things out in a way that makes sense. I love that. Like that's what we need. And that's why I think this is like, as a whole, it's a wild thing that's happened to bring together so many different people and like create this huge think tank, you know?
Mm-hmm. I agree. You know, in the early days of Superstonk, and even still today, although to a lesser degree, a lot of people are, you know, tired of writing DD. But I still think it's the essence of it is amazing, that there's this repository for, and this is one stock, you know, and there's 700,000 minds actively on it. And, you know, some of them might be fucking crazy. Some of them, you know, might be intelligent. Some of them might be smooth as glass, but it doesn't matter because it's just all those eyes on it. Right. And the ability to put that information out week after week, day after day, has been probably more enlightening for retail investors than anything ever.
I know. And it's, I mean, enlightening and exciting in some ways, you know what I mean? In a lot of ways. Because it's like, I think a lot of people are just, like I said earlier, the little guy or whatever. I'm a big fan of, I'm a big believer in, you don't be a victim of your circumstances. So I don't mean this in a way like where the little guy never wins, because I think you can rise up of whatever situation in a way, you know, to a degree. But I think that the little guy, in theory, with the economy and politics and some, it's really hard to see corruption go unchecked, and it almost never works. It doesn't feel like it always goes in our favor, or ever does, really. So it'd be nice to win on a big public scale. You know what I mean?
I agree. I mean, don't get me wrong.
Exciting.
We'll be immediately villainized if that does happen.
Oh, that's what I've said too. Yeah, dude, I've said the same thing in my videos. I was like, I had a video called the Ultimate MOASS Training Guide where I spent a lot of time on these two videos. It's probably one of my favorite videos, two of my favorite videos I've ever made, because it's literally just step by step what I'm doing. And then I talk even about like the tax implications and like the other, and also things like where to buy a fucking car after the MOASS because you get the best tax breaks. I went through like a lot of effort. So in that video, I said, here's what to expect right after the MOASS happens. They're going to immediately say you're the villain. They're immediately going to come after you. So, but those videos, I'm like, dude, make sure you're not putting too much information out there about yourself. You don't want to be the guy that's the fall guy or the face of Reddit because you put a picture of you and your kids like, yeah, look at me. You know, like be logical and sensible about the damn thing, and just know like there are certain things that more than likely are going to happen. Like we're definitely going to get villainized, and the people that you're going to even be split between your family being excited for you, and then people hating you because with money can come problems, or people knock on your door for money. So shut the fuck up about it. You can barely articulate it in the first place, or if you can, just like make sure people you're talking to you trust, you know?
Yeah.
Because at some point when this pops, reality check for the world, dude.
So long waiting and not knowing what to do with it once it's over. Yeah, I know that feeling. You know, I held AMD for. I bought AMD when I was in school, and it was dirt cheap, and I just held it for years and years and years, and I had these set price targets in mind. I was like, this is what this fucking company is worth. And recently I sold, well, actually this year I sold 2/3 of my position in AMC, and it was like selling a child. And then like I didn't know what the fuck to do with it, the money, right? Like I was just like, you know, the stock was up. I bought it in at like $9-12 in that range, and you know it was like I sold it 100 and 150, or 120 and 150, and it's just like, so I just bought more AMD. Like I was like, well, it already made me this money, so I guess I'll buy more with it.
Yeah, I know. It's like, yeah, like you're saying, people aren't gonna. It's an ongoing joke. We don't know how to sell, but we fucking really forgot. I think, and it's gonna be hard to sell too. That's why I think like a lot of people like me, I believe in the future of the company too. So like you said, like it's
like
not just like
selling
it's gonna be
it's
money.
like selling a child. And
Well,
after all this drama, it's going to be even harder.
Yeah, and you're gonna be like, so that's why I personally am not gonna sell all of mine because I think it has value long term. It's like if it was just a random ass company with no future, I would sell all of it. And I'd be done. I'd be like, okay, that's great. I won the MOASS. I'm good. But I was like, I actually see the value in it, and it's gonna be hard for me to sell. Like, and I'm selling. I don't know about you. My plan is to sell in chunks on as it goes up, and make sure after I hit a floor that I have in mind. So
Okay.
that's my strategy. So I don't go, I just all at once dump it, you know, and then I'm
No,
forever.
that is in essence the best way to strategically exit a position.
What did I say? Told you guys.
Yeah. So if you're gonna exit a position, you know, a short squeeze. I don't know. Can we see this on your screen? Maybe.
Let's go.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So a short position, you know, a squeeze is gonna have a curve, right? It's gonna have an up, a down.
These are the DDs
middle,
I like
right?
to see. Oh, not that kind.
That just looks hairy, yeah. But you know, as the short squeeze goes up, you know, they really kind of come just straight down on the other side. But yeah, you want to try to break up your position and exit as profitably as possible over the range of this, right? Because then your average exit is better than if you try to like, now, you know, if you try to time the peak and you sell everything here, right? And the stock fucking dips and then runs up. Well, you don't have any fucking position left, right? So like you just get to watch all of these unrealized gains get captured by other people. And so yeah, you want to exit over the curve. There's ways to do that. I have an exit DD. I don't know if you've read it, but there's ways to do that where like you can use stop limits. And you can ensure that, you know, when the stock peaks and starts to come down and consolidates, you can set a limit here, right? And this is your stop and this is your limit. And so there's a price spread here, however much you choose. I mean, ideally kind of wide because of the high volatility. But if the stock goes up and your stop is never hit, then you never sell whatever part of the position you've allocated to this particular sale, right? And then you can just move your stop and your limit up to the next period of consolidation. And that way you can just chase the price up without actually ever selling a share. But if the price does drop, right, you'll affect a sale. And so it kind of protects your downside risk, but while not, you know, selling with a market order or something that's going to experience a lot of volatility.
Right.
But yeah, check out my exit DD on Reddit.
I will. So, but yeah, and that depends on where your personal floor is, because you wouldn't, in theory, you wouldn't be setting that stop until you felt like it's either over or in your eyes, or you've hit a price that you're good with. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I agree.
So if you don't mind me asking, do you have a floor or a range that you tell people, or do you tell like, or how realistically high do you think it's going to go?
I have no idea. I think.
Okay, let's say.
I think there's a world where everything we believe is true.
Yes.
And then the upside potential of GameStop is in fact unlimited.
Infinite risk, baby.
Right, mathematically correct. There's real world things to factor into that. I don't think setting a price target as a trader, I'm used to following trends. I know how to trade them. I know how to keep my money on the table until near the last possible minute. I understand a lot of people don't have that, but it's good to learn at least a little bit of that, right? Because we don't know, right? We don't, if it hits, it's a black swan event. I think anybody who tells you that here's the set floor, they're lying either to themselves or others, right? Because it is in fact an unknowable quantity. And so you can assume things, but they may not be true. Like, you know, and it's something that worries me a lot. And it's why I wrote my exit DD in the first place, is because what if it hits, you know, 10 million and your price target's 25, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you just don't see 25 million and you don't sell, or if it hits 1 and your price target's 10, or if it hits 100,000 a share and your price target's $1 million, in any of these scenarios, you're waiting out an expectation that may never come. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to set a limit. I'm saying it can keep going. And that's one of the reasons you break up your position, right? Is because you can, if you sell, if it gets rejected at a test of $100,000 and then shoots back up and keeps climbing, right? And you've only sold 10% of your shares, then who gives a shit, right? Like you have 90% of your shares left to ride to the top. And if you sell another 10% at 500,000 and it drops and then keeps going up, you still have 80% of your shares left, and you've broken up your position to exit equitably with a better average, right? But yeah, I don't think you can just arbitrarily set a number on it. And so, I wrote my exit DD without a price target because I don't think you can realistically have one. You just got to kind of see what happens. I mean, statistically, the number of people that sell at the peak of any price action is like 0.003% or something of the people that started at the bottom. I mean, you got to remember that there's, and I think people with like X shares or XX shares, like these single and double digit holders, they have a lot more incentive to hold much longer, right? People like DFE would be a millionaire or a billionaire at $5,000 a share. There's people with positions that large.
Right.
And
you'd
so
be a bajillionaire if you held to
but
25 million.
Where's the money come from? Right? Like, I mean, we know the Fed will back the DTCC and the NSCC if they fail, but to what extent, right? To what extent before, like, I mean, sure, but here's another scenario.
I know what you're saying.
If you suck all the money out of the world economy, the fucking money you made is worthless, right?
And then we have to go to the metaverse.
Fair enough.
I get what you're saying. I've said this too in my videos. I said, look, there's perfect scenario, and then there's like worst case scenario, and the truth, or like what's going to happen is right in the middle, or maybe one side or the other. Actually, it just depends.
I also think that the government will protect the value of the dollar.
Well, yeah, I think they have to, and I think that's probably, if anybody has asked me, I've always said the only thing I'm concerned about, given that there's infinite risk,
is government intervention.
I don't know what it looks like, if it's called government intervention or if it's a UFO attack or if it's a or if it's a 9/11 the sequel. I don't know what it would be, but to me it's like, at some point, like you said, they have to protect their asses and the dollar. So at some point in the midst of the chaos, it will become chaotic. But I think we'll have another situation, not like they cut off the buy button with Robinhood, but I think something's going to happen that stops it before it can get to where it should go.
I mean, realistically,
crazy high.
Realistically, I don't think they're incentivized to do that. I think people have these targets of like the DTCC's threshold of $60 trillion, right? And I think as much as I believe in this community's power to hold, your bank account looks a lot different with hundreds or millions in it.
That's true.
As the squeeze,
something people think
as the squeeze climbs up and we see these peaks, the number of people left here is significantly less than the number of people here, right? And so the odds of the entire float of GameStop being sold at $10 million plus are very slim.
Exactly.
So you really don't have to think about the chance. Now, I hope anybody who's listening and anybody out there sells at those prices. I do, but it's just not realistic, right? Like, it's just temperaments fly high when we drop $5. Temperaments are going to fly high when we go up.
I agree.
Like,
and I think
it's definitely it's tough to hold that long.
Yeah, and I know that people are human and emotional. As much as we've been seasoned and zen, I think that there was a DD that came out that said basically what we're talking about. And I made a video about it as well. Basically, I drew the same thing you just drew, where I said it's almost like a bell curve where the people that sell at the beginning will drop off. There will be people, no matter what we think, that will sell too early.
Yep.
And then there will be people who hold and get the greatest price on people who wait too long.
Mm-hmm.
And somewhere in the middle of that shit is an average geometric mean that you can figure out. Basically, that if the average price is 2 million, right? And the DD was saying that total, out of impact that we had as sellers, people who sold early at the peak and waited too long, that total damage would be about $4.7 trillion is what that DD said.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, we just wrote a check for that to, like, I don't know, the Museum for the Arts. I don't know what we wrote it for.
I have to explain to people very frequently that, $1 billion isn't that much. And that's not easy to do, right? Like
I have plenty of billions of dollars.
The scales of the economy in regards to this kind of stuff, it's unfathomable. It's just it's so much money. I mean, $1 trillion is 1,000 billionaires, right? That's a lot. That's a lot. It's a lot of fucking money. So when you're talking $60 trillion, unlikely. The only situation I see where the government's incentivized to step in and where you get like is where if you were to get something like the infinity pool that everyone goes on about,
right.
That's where you're gonna see like the government freeze the fucking stock and go sorry, because that's global economic damage, and you will watch the leaders of the free world stand around and applaud them for doing so. And
I think I agree with you. I think that's what I see. And like I said, I want to be clear. I don't know if it would be a government intervention, because on the flip side of it, you say, well, they make a fuck ton in taxes when we pay our taxes.
They don't give a shit about that.
And that could help. That could help them, and more so than just letting this ride out forever and drag us down.
I mean,
there's an argument for that.
So if those dollars exist, they're already taxing them, right?
You would think, but if they're controlled by hedge funds, then who the fuck knows how they're doing this shit?
I mean, retail's going to try to dodge their taxes too, right? It's just
well, not as many of them are good at it. Let's be honest.
It's true. No, you're correct. It's much harder to facilitate the kind of tax exemptions that billionaires get, because you need to have those systems in place when you earn the money in advance, right?
That's what I put in my video.
Not after the fact.
You people need to be thinking about lawyers and shit like that right now.
Tax lawyers,
like what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, you need, and if you make enough money, you need a tax lawyer to watch your tax lawyer, and a CPA to make sure that everything they're doing is legal. And
couple fucking big pit bulls, just to put outside your house all around like a pit bull moat.
Keep them in your living room, because like that's the next thing that happens to people that are inexperienced with finance, is they lose their money, right? Like what is it like?
Drop it down a sewer.
4 and 5 lottery winners are bankrupt within 5 years. And people should be focused on that. They should be focused on what to do afterwards. How to manage their assets. There's a lot of good books on wealth management. People should read those.
Well, that's what I was saying. Yeah, that's what we're talking about at the beginning. It's like you gotta fucking educate yourself, and it's up to the individual, like what you're gonna do or how far you can go, just like anything else. But all right, tell me, what do you think? How does this end? How does this all fucking end? When's the date? I don't want to know a date. Just I don't want to.
I mean, if you want to know about,
give me like, all right. So I originally thought August to January, the end of January was and I know that sounds vague now, but because of what I was seeing this mother of all wedges coming to a head around August. And then I see a lot of responsibilities for the market to start enforcing things, ending shortly thereafter, with a combination of NFT marketplace, in my opinion, should have been announced before the end of the year. So I was thinking somewhere in between end of August and the end of January was the time frame. And the end of January is like, obviously has even more implications, being an anniversary of one of the craziest internet things to ever happen, just on a surface level.
Yeah.
The the amount of people that can still buy in at this price and the potential for another run up just on that alone. So I still, I don't know. To me, that's what I'm still looking at. But because my timeline is looking like it's getting pushed because of how deep their pockets are allowing this to continue, and how I don't see what I would hope to see yet, even from the GameStop's not ready to launch their platform. You know what I mean? So what do you think? How does it end? Is it this year? Give it to me.
I mean, you've read my DD, so I think the statistically the highest chance, based on the positions that I see in the market, for a squeeze to occur, and it's not just a squeeze, right? There's a lot more to it than that. It's a staged process, right? Last year we saw a pile up of FTDs that were not being properly net settled move into a Volga Vada squeeze. Those are, I know what you're thinking. Those aren't Russian porns. They're not Russian porn stars.
Sound like something you read out of an anatomy book, but
they are derivatives of the Greek Vega.
I know that word.
Okay. Which is volatility, right? And so what we saw retail pile in on top of these FTDs into out of the money calls. We saw those calls realize value as the short hedge funds were forced to drive the price up due to the FTDs. We know they didn't cover because the short covering, as reported in the SEC report, very minimal. And essentially what happened is long and short volatility positions on GameStop had to start buying even more calls at an even more rapid rate. And what we essentially saw was a skew in volatility occur, where volatility just went crazy. But it wasn't a squeeze, like not in the sense of a short squeeze. And it wasn't a gamma squeeze, because a gamma squeeze is almost orchestrated, right? It was just volatility popping off and them getting that shit under control and slamming it back down. And there were a number of reasons for that to happen. And you know, as I did more and more research over the course of this year, it became more and more apparent that January was the best opportunity for that to repeat itself. January, specifically this cycle from the CME futures expiration that occurred in December through January, and even last year into Feb, we didn't realize the exposure in February because everyone sold their short-term call contracts. But it was there. And this year it's there again. And because they're not out of their positions. And so I do see this period as the highest probability for a short squeeze. Now, don't get me wrong, over time, our price can increase. As these cycles continue, obviously more and more interest will pick up on them institutionally and from retail, you know, as they become more apparent and they prove their existence. Like we've seen the F-man cycle with ETF OPEX expirations, the run in February, the run in May, the run in August, the run in November. These all occur exactly T+2 from the ETF and index quarterly options expiration dates. And essentially what it is they don't have the shares to hedge, or they don't hedge. And so they create a lot of gamma exposure. And so we see that gamma exposure realized by the markets immediately within the window that exposure is due, right? And we've seen that occur all year, to a lesser degree every time. And there's, I think, a reason behind that also. And that involves options as well. The fewer options bought and held, the less pressure there is on their position to create synthetic shares, right? But yeah, I do see a path forward. Obviously, I think GameStop is a great long-term investment. If it never squeezed, I would still own it. But I do think that the potential remains. But I also think that you cannot have the hubris to assume that these entities will not attempt to get out of their risk. So it's not forever, right? They might be trapped, but they're not. Like, I said this, I don't remember when, but you know, you don't fight somebody and back them into a corner and then let them catch their breath.
Mm.
And I think they're cornered. I think everything going on these last couple of weeks reeks of their desperation. I think institutions are seeing it. We've seen
There's blood in the water.
Yeah, we've seen the IV skew over the last couple of days. And what that means is that the options market is pricing GameStop at a higher price than it's currently trading, which means institutions are selling puts and buying long call positions. The short hedge funds are doing everything in their power to drive the price down as much as they feasibly can. Everything in their power to drive the price down. Is they are internalizing order flow every single day. And that is a dam that breaks quickly.
Gonna be wet, ladies and gentlemen. Did you hear that? You heard it here first.
It's
about to all get wet. It's gonna be great.
I'm excited as shit, but I try to maintain a calm demeanor. Because you have to,
really?
because I try to look for how do they get out. I mean, that's been my goal these last few days. I've been, digging into entropy swaps and just all kinds of shit. Trying to figure out how can they move? How can they use their mobility to get away from the volatility? How can they defeat another squeeze? Right.
And they've been masters of it so far.
They are.
I mean?
Well, no, they are.
That's what they do.
I think in this situation, and everyone we like to make the memes about Ken, and he is a vicious opponent. If he is our opponent, I mean, there's many of them, but these guys did not get where they are being stupid.
I think it's Satan's our opponent.
They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing far better than we do. Their problem is that they're kind of in a shitty spot. But yeah, I think that we just assume this position of power that we may or may not have, right? Like you can't necessarily just sit and wait them out forever, because they will reduce their short position over time. They will find ways. I mean, we've already seen them stop. They stopped reporting short interest after the sneeze in January, right? And does anybody question how that's done? Like, how does one hide a float? And there's ways to hide a float and to dodge reporting, but the ways they do that,
that's a good question. Is like you said, get out of their short positions. What do you see them do that in just hiding it in things like Brazilian puts or offshore?
Incrementally, incrementally over time. I think these future cycles represent a little bit of them stuck in the short position, and I also think they represent a little bit of them getting out. I think their hope is to drag it out long enough that we're gone.
Get out slowly over time. Yeah.
Yep. And they will, without a doubt, shave off whatever they can every cycle. So every time we've seen the stock run, you have to assume that a little bit of covering has been done. Now, I think retail holds a strong floor, and I think we don't let them do a lot, right? Because if they did too much, the price runs out of control. But they've got to cover just a fraction, right? And that's what they need to do. And then they suppress the price back down, right? Like they flip those short positions into futures contracts against their borrowed positions on ETFs, and show the SEC a net balance of zero short interest. And they use that margin then from that contract to leverage the slamming the price back down, which makes everyone defeated. And then they, cover whatever they can while it's down. And then their covering becomes a little too much, and the longs buy in a little too much, and the asymmetric risk reaches its equilibrium again, and the stock goes up, and then they've got to bring it back down again. And so it's in those down periods where they're doing the covering. It's not the run. The run is because they've kept the price suppressed for too long. But yeah, I don't think and I think time is to our advantage necessarily.
Well, I think that I can see I can, in that way you say it, I agree with you, because if they can slowly get out over time, and that might take who knows how many years, 10, 15, who knows, whatever,
Yeah.
if mathematically, but at the same time, their goal is to profit, and they don't, this has never happened to them to where they had to close out. I think Mark Cuban, their goal is never to close out all their
I mean, it's
positions.
happened. They don't like to. But,
You think but you truly think someone's got all the way out, like completely, all the shorts have closed their position out, all the synthetics have, in this way.
I mean, you see stocks that get delisted and they have short positions and they cover those short positions before the stock's delisted, right? They have to, like TGAZF. Like, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, that one
causes
popped.
Yeah, it popped. But I mean, Spurt is a great example. That happened not that long ago. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it, but
Nope.
It was a Rentec long, Citadel short, same entities, right? Massively short. Borrow rate was through the roof. Very similar, low float, much lower float than GameStop. And they sold to another company and they were getting delisted. And the stock went from, like $5, $7, $9 up to 50 something. And yeah, they closed their short positions, right? Like they don't like to, obviously they don't want to suffer thousands of % loss on a position, but they will cover if they have to. I mean, again, remember, these institutions are built on the backbone of risk aversion. They will attempt. Now, don't get me wrong. It took a lot of hubris to end up, fucking 200% short on GameStop, but I don't think that we should have that same hubris in thinking that they won't try to escape. Because they will. They will put every last bit of effort they can, and don't think they don't know that Ryan Cohen has plans and that the company has potential for growth. They do. They realize the risk intrinsic in the position they're in, and they will do everything they can to get out.
I think their options are running prison.
They will attempt to get out equitably, right, with as minimal losses as possible.
Which sounds utopian, but I think there are ways of that happening in this situation are so limited because it's such a one of a kind scenario, which is why they're so fucked.
I mean, it's not a one of a kind scenario, but it's a specific kind of scenario, and it is rare, but it does exist. It's happened before. VW is every day becoming a better and better example, except that was controlled by one entity, which allowed the short hedge funds to get out. Retail's too chaotic to release the short hedge funds from their obligation, right? And so in a way, GameStop is far more dangerous than VW was. But there's other stocks in the market that exhibit similar ownership, similar short positions, maybe not to the same extent as GameStop, but they do exist. Sometimes the shorts are wrong. And that's what happened on GameStop, is the shorts were very, very wrong. And then I think that, Melvin started shorting the shit out of GameStop in 2015, and then Citadel et al. And the other big boys started just shorting the entire retail discretionary sector, which you can see. The data's available, and they met in January. And so Citadel's out there shorting all these retail ETFs, and Melvin's just shorting the shit out of the underlying. And they came across each other, and Ken's like, "Are you short 100%?" And fucking Plotkin's like, "Yeah," and he's like, "Well, I am too." Great. And that's what we saw happen. But now they know. The surprise factor is gone.
Yeah, I think it's not. I think from what's been uncovered, that this is just normal. Like, you call it crime or whatever you want to call it. This is how they make money off the market, is by going balls deep beyond what people can know. And I think because what they've done is hide it, like you're talking about earlier, but in ways that it's hard for us to even see.
We don't even have data.
Right, exactly. So I think when it's that blatant, you could do whatever you wanted. You could go balls deep and no one would
but
know.
At the same time,
and then if they did know, you can manipulate it down or create, like Kramer says, dissonance or bad feelings and make people, the retail traders, be emotional, create fake articles. I mean, this is widely known. This is
that's what's happening. That's what's happening right now. That's exactly what they're doing.
Well, it's been happening. Yeah.
We're moving into this, 1 year anniversary, and, emotion is high and retail expects the moon, and they are slamming the fucking stock into the ground, right? Because that is the best way to create liquidity.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, most will hold, some will not. It has an effect. A lot of people, even to this day, are over leveraged, right? Like there's some people that invested too much. They didn't follow the original instructions, which was don't invest more than you can afford to lose, right?
I took out 6 loans just to be sure.
I mean, yeah, it's tough. It's even harder in that position, right? To hold,
of course,
because there's an obligation attached to your long. Like, you're not just free and clear long the stock. You've got a real obligation that you have to face. Whether you borrowed money from friends or family, or even just talk to friends and family about GameStop and they bought in, and now they're calling you and they're like, why the fuck is the stock down? And you don't have an answer. And that's exactly that's the exact emotion that they're trying to foment. And that's why time in the market and like what I do on my channel exists, really, is to give people that experience to know that this is bullshit. Every time GameStop has gone down, it's gone right back up, because they are in fact trapped. They are still trapped in that position. But yeah, to assume that they're trapped forever is hubris on our part, right?
The shark can get out of the cage. Yeah, it can wiggle out eventually.
And so I do talk a lot about the strategic opportunities to be had in options, but frankly, I think a lot of those strategic opportunities will just be taken by long investment firms, and I hope people with small shareholdings that do understand options are able to maybe profit more off of the squeeze than they would have otherwise with that knowledge. But I think ultimately they're probably fucked. Their internalization currently is reaching a break point, and so we'll see how long they can hold it.
Someone said you don't like to say that word. I don't know why it is.
Which word?
Internalization.
Oh,
it's coming up in my chat. I was trying not to ask too many questions.
It's because everybody asks me day in and day out what internalization means. I honestly, I answer the question like it feels like 100 times a day. Internalization essentially means that they're obfuscating the order flow from the lit exchange. So they're taking whatever side as the market maker. And this is fucked up, but this is their job, right? Their job is to reduce volatility in the market. And so they can take all the buy orders, right? And only print the sells. And what they do is they satisfy the buy orders with their own margin and synthetically created shares, right? And they just let the sell orders print to the market in order to affect the price action they want to see. Now, when they release that, right, because they can only hold so much on their margin, because a prime lender isn't going to allow them to take on infinite tail risk. Like JP Morgan's not going to allow Chase to just bury JP Morgan, right?
That tail risk. Damn.
Yeah, tail risk it's real.
That's what college is like, infinite tail risk.
And eventually that has to come to an end, and all that buy pressure gets released. And I think their hope is that they cover all their FTDs while the price is low, and then they let the buy orders hit the market, and they don't have to worry about the price. Mm-hmm. We know the FTDs are coming in. There's plenty of proof. So it's just a question of what's the break point, and it's soon, I think.
Dude, I think so too, man. I think so too. Well, I think that's a good place to stop, dude. You think you're good? I think I could talk to you like all night long. I'm jacked. I'm excited. It was nice talking to you, man.
I mean, I can go on a little longer if you want to. If you got any more questions, I'm happy to answer them always.
We can do some questions. Yeah, let's do a couple questions.
Yeah, sure.
And then I'm gonna internalize some food. Let's see. All right, Let's see where these questions were. Twitter. Let me pull up my Twitter. At Lightning Warrior, if you want to follow me, just to say that right quick.
No, I should probably. I don't know what mine
I think
is.
I think we answered most of them. I try to I didn't want it to be like an interrogation. I wanted to try to
my Twitter
cover
is
as many people's questions.
That's what it is.
Yeah, what the hell is your name, first of all? That's question number 1.
It was a gamer tag. It was originally Gherkin, and then Gherkin was gone. Like some other asshole took it, and then I was like, Gherkin it
that
sounds like jerking it, and then I was like, that's funny. And I was 14, and I've just I didn't really start my YouTube channel with any intention of it being anything, so it was just like
it's actually awesome.
I didn't really give a shit.
It's so awesome because like the joke about, you know, hedge funds losing to potato in my ass. it's really true.
It really is.
Jerking it, and then Lightning Warrior in space with fucking war paint on. Like, it's actually incredible. Oh man. All right, let me see these questions. Let's see. A lot of these are just about options and stuff. Let me see if I can find anything else. I hope you and Jerkin can explain options so clear that all the FUD surrounding options will fade away after tonight. And also have fun doing it. Yeah, this was fun, number 1. And number 2,
it was.
I think we did with the options thing. I mean, him more than me. Obviously, I'm not options like professional. I dabble. I told my stream the other night. I said it's like knowing enough to play poker but not being great. You don't want to walk up the table and fucking put it all down and think you're gonna do something. You might get lucky, but like you're probably just knowing the basis of it, and you needed more experience to be on, you know, the world tour of poker, whatever the fuck it's called. Like you gotta know what you're doing to get in there. And especially what I say with GME is like in a casino that you know the table's rigged on, you really need to know your shit to know how to put yourself in the best position to win at that seemingly rigged table.
You got to play your odds and your outs.
Right. So that's what I was saying. Let's see if there's anything else. Can you ask him about the GME share buyback agreement?
Oh, yeah. That's something we were digging into at the end of my stream today. There was a big block order that came in. It was like the first big block order on GameStop since November. It was 735,000 shares. It was executed January 7th, I think in the morning. It's significant. It's a long institutional buy. It's right around the same amount of money GameStop has left over in their discretionary share buyback from their original share buyback agreement, which is about $101 million. It's close. The average sale price was about $144, but they may have got some cheaper. So it's possible. There's a lot of coincidence there, but I'm not going to go out and say that like GameStop bought $100 million worth of its shares back, but they might have. If not, a long position moved into a big long position, which is bullish.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of money doesn't get thrown at something that's not a guarantee.
I saw that pop up and I was thinking the same thing. Like, that's what I was saying earlier. I keep on seeing more shit that gets me pumped every day.
Yep.
You know, like it's just like, it's crazy to me. All right, look, you can believe whatever you want to believe. And like we said, some people are balls deep and they're going to hold till the very peak. And some people are going to laugh at what I'm about to say. But like the fact that one day soon, at least relatively soon in compared to your life, you're going to wake up and be a fucking millionaire, multi-millionaire, and have more money you've ever dreamed. It almost doesn't feel real, especially holding it this long. But I keep seeing more and more evidence that's pure fucking review. It's not like me having a hunch and going and looking it up. It's like peer reviewed data that says, yep, it's more evidence this is coming.
Yeah. And, you know, we as I don't want to say,
Take it out alone.
Fuck it. I'll say it. I'm probably one of the preeminent DD writers on Superstonk. It's probably like me, Creand, Lenixis, Adabit. Like I'll put myself up there. I
agree because you add a lot of value.
Yeah, and you know, we've been wrong, all of us, right? Of course, because we don't have the data, we don't have the tools. But every time we're wrong, we stay committed to being more right the next time. Every time we learn a little more and we learn a little more of their exposure and their weaknesses. And you know, and we're all still in it. I think that should tell everybody something. Like every last one of us is still doing this, and it's not because we're seeing a downside, right? It's not because we're seeing a bear play, right? We still think we're gonna win. If I didn't think I was gonna win, I wouldn't be doing it.
You'd have transferred schools by now. You know, damn, that's so true. That's such a simple thought, man. That's so like, dude, there's so many simple little facts that, man, it's gonna. I hate to.
I'm just trying to see those nipples.
There's no better way to say it.
I'm just trying to see those nipples pop in that shirt before I get off the stream. So.
Oh, dude. I mean, it's a galactic elastic battle armor, baby. It's custom made for me. It's just perfect. You know, because like in this galaxy, I can't die. You know, I don't know what happened. I just got struck by lightning, walking my dog in the rain, woke up in a different galaxy, thought I was dead, but turns out I'm invincible. And then I found a PC, started streaming, kicking ass online. Is what I do.
It's awesome.
But anyway, this I didn't want to be naked. You know what I mean? On every single thing. It's funny for a while to get, you know, and then I'm just like, whatever. I get tired of seeing my dong on all my like posters.
Yeah.
So then I'm like, it's funny, but it runs out. So I had to get something made. So I got this made. That way it has my DNA in it. So I won't tell you what kind, but you know, that way it doesn't burn up off of me. So we're good. But yes, at any point now, we're gonna be multi-millionaire. Oh yeah. Let's see. There's another one on here. I know there was one good one. I can't remember what it was. The Persian pickle. Are you sure you can handle a Persian pickle? That's funny.
I'm not Persian.
I thought a Persian was a cat. I don't even know what it was. I'm afraid to ask in 2022.
I mean, it's someone.
Are you a Persian?
It's someone of Iranian descent, but it's not me.
I played the games.
Yeah.
That was actually such a sick game when you could like slow yourself down and stuff. That was, remember that?
It was well, yeah. The Prince of Persia games were super cool. And then it became Assassin's Creed, which was like sometimes good and sometimes shit. And then Jake Gyllenhaal happened and it died.
Yeah. I think I remember that. I got acquisitions or buybacks, someone says. What's better?
Acquisitions or buybacks? That's a good question. GameStop's pretty illiquid. If we don't own 100% of the float, a buyback would guarantee it. Yeah. Like if there's like a 0.5% missing, acquisitions are later. GameStop needs to turn around first. I don't think an acquisition at this point. See, GameStop's a growth stock. We want to see negative EPS. We want to see GameStop throwing fucking money into e-commerce. We want to see them throwing money into growth, employees. We want them to build the biggest, best systems. We want them to spend money, right? Especially before inflation gets even worse than it already is. Like the fact that GameStop's been spending money all fucking year on growth is good, right? They're a retailer. They're kind of impervious to inflation, which is also good as we enter this high inflation economy. Like if you're going at it from a value investment standpoint, yeah, you don't want to see them buying other companies and trying to turn them around until they've turned themselves around, right? And really, we don't want to see them buying shares back either because there's not that fucking many of them. They shouldn't need to. I mean, the float's only 62 million and it's already illiquid as fuck. So yeah, I think we just want to really see GameStop investing in itself and investing in its future and its employees. I think that's the best use of the money that they got in June.
Somebody said, is it possible to say empirically how many shorts were covered and when, or is it a moot point anyway? And I don't think it's empirically possible with our data we have.
Yeah, I mean, not without knowing the breadth of their internal position. Which no one ever will.
Same about the true short interest, right? Because the way they hide it.
Yeah, I mean, I doubt even after if MOASS happens, even in the aftermath, I highly doubt maybe 10 years later we might find out what the true short interest was.
Yeah, that's so crazy because that on the other side of that of like
you can assume backwards, with ETFs it's infinite.
Right, and that's what I'm saying is like on the opposite side, you can be like, well, maybe we'll be able to untangle it looking backwards. But while we're in the middle of it now, on the front side of it, because they obscure the data from us, and we know it was at least 226%. The SEC says this shit, and then we look at now. It's like, well, what happened? Where's the? We know that they can hide these numbers from us.
I would say the glitches.
They're actively living through the crime of it all.
I would say the glitches in the data are where I set my baseline.
Yeah,
you know,
I remember seeing
when
everyone's
like, "Oh, that's a glitch," what that really means is that's data that got shown that shouldn't have been, right?
And it's always been positive or bullish.
Yeah,
glitches.
Yeah,
every time.
Why is it not like showing up 0% short interest?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So I think Refinitiv a couple months ago published 113% short interest on GameStop. You know, we've seen 226%. We've seen 145%. I would say that my low range is 113%, and then up from there, right? Like that's where I set my baseline is those glitches, because I've been invested in a lot of stocks and I've watched their data over months, and that's bullshit. Like that doesn't happen, you know.
I know.
Like, you get so glitches, you get like misreported float counts and stuff after there's a change in shares. That's not abnormal, but reporting short interest, you know, 100% higher than what's being, it's not someone fucking messing up a keystroke, because, you know, those data platforms just track data, right? So there's no human in between punching an extra zero.
Not Homer Simpson, dude, like dropping a donut on the wrong key.
Yeah, it's just data reported that shouldn't have been. It's very simple. Like the 13 million shares that popped up in Fidelity that one day. It's all just data that no one should have seen, but they did.
I totally agree with you. I don't think a lot of people are asking a lot. I think we'd be here all fucking night if we answer all these.
I'm into it. I mean, it's up to you. I know you're hungry.
I'm going longer. Is a true SI indicative of a MOASS peak? Do you think so? Is a true SI indicative of MOASS peak? Yeah, we're just saying it's impossible to fucking know that.
I mean, I get what they're saying. Does the SI matter, I guess, for a peak of MOASS, for the peak of MOASS? Yes and no.
Yeah, I see that point too.
You have to remember there's a lot of share lockup with GameStop. Like there's people that bought this company like and died in the last year. Probably a few.
I know,
right? Like,
it has to be. Some old ass people too who just can't even barely spell it.
I mean, there's share like it's gonna run, and there's people who own it who aren't gonna know. I mean, I think that the share lockup is sufficient to cover any discrepancy in the true short interest, if there is any. And I think the true short interest is high enough that whatever prices GameStop is capable of realizing, it will. Right. That's the range of MOASS, is like it will realize whatever the potential is. I think it'll realize it.
Damn, I feel like it's a big.
I don't even think it wouldn't even have to be sold 100% short for that to occur.
I know,
100% short,
70% short's fucking wild, dude. That's I didn't know how jacked I would be after talking to you, but I'm so jacked again. Like, I don't need any help, like working myself up about this shit, and now I'm even more worked up already.
Glad to be of help.
Let's call it there, at least for this talk, but let's do it again sometime.
Yeah, for sure, man. It was a pleasure having you on. Everybody in chat, if you could. Oh, do you use a jade roller?
What the hell is that?
Okay, that was
like a
question.
Mortal Kombat move.
It's like a rock that you rub on your face.
It's okay. Sounds nice.
Yeah, I'll discuss it with you. I'm gonna start a beauty channel for that kind of thing later.
Okay.
But guys, make sure you head over to Kozik's channel, give him a like and a subscribe.
Thank you.
Anything to help the GME community.
Appreciate that.
Thank you so much, man. I appreciate it.
Man.
And I'll see you around.
Where can people find you at? So I can get my people.
You can find me on Twitter at gherkin or at gherkin. I don't know my own Twitter. Hold on. It's at gherkin. It's at gherkin.
Google it.
Yeah, just fucking Google it, or you can check me out on Pickle Financial on YouTube.
There it is. Cool. And I'm Cosmic Lightning Warrior live on YouTube for all his viewers. And just look it up. I'm probably the only one.
Probably. There's some weird pickle shit on YouTube, but that's not me. All right.
Might be into it. Subscribe to both, man. All right, man. Have a good rest of your night,
dude.